we always evolve as writers, and then I read
Right.
something that I wrote even a few years ago, and I'm like, but I
I
can't go
know.
back and fix everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
well,
you got
that's
to
where
just
I'm
write
at.
the next book. You know.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Anyway, hey everybody, I'm here with Vincent Zandri. This is another one of my author interviews. This one is largely because Vincent is our not only our editor at large, and is helping us out with Alibi Syndicate Press, but he is our debut author as well, and has a fabulous book, which we were just talking about, Quietly Into the Night. Oh, first of all, I love this book. I love the cover. I'm going to have Sydney put the cover in here too,
Thank you.
because that cover is absolutely outstanding.
Thank you.
But the story itself is amazing. Um, Obviously, you're a prolific and amazing writer, Vince. We've been working together, known each other a long time,
Keep it
working
coming.
together off and on forever. I know, keep the praise coming, keep the praise coming.
Yeah.
I got it. But but in these interviews I'm doing, I'm talking a little bit more about, I mean, we'll get to talking about your book too, but I want to talk a little bit about your career because one of the things you do in this book is there's some definite writer elements that I can say, yeah, I see that's Vince. Um, kind of
Yeah.
inserting into the story a little bit,
Yeah.
but which is great because I mean, we've talked about this before. People really don't understand the publishing industry and what it actually means, even when you're successful as a writer, and those type of things. But I always find your story fascinating. So I think it's a good place to start with this interview because so you decided to be a writer and go to writing school, but
Right.
you could have done something very different.
Indeed, Troy.
Yes.
Um, I I was groomed, as everybody knows, most people anyway. Uh, I was groomed for the construction industry, and my father was also the heir apparent to this business, and it was millions of dollars a year we did in commercial construction, renovations, stuff like that. Root, um, Routine maintenance, or no, non-routine maintenance for like big factories like General Electric or
Oh,
paper
nice. Yeah.
companies, stuff like that. So I actually, my first memory actually of working on the job is I was 5 years old, and my father's like, I need somebody to hold the tape measure. After
Yeah.
dinner, we're going to go up the road because he was building a church in
Right.
1969. And he's like, you're going to hold the tape measure. And if, and then I'll take you for an ice cream or something like that. Right. And so like, I loved it. It was like, working with dad, and, out there and
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
like for an hour, and sometimes he'd have to watch me, and he'd take me to a job site, like, because back in those days, he was still a mason for his own company. And then at night he would go over blueprints and stuff like that. This
Right.
company was
Right.
that small. So I distinctly remember me like him having to like um smooth out concrete with those machines that
Hmm. Yeah. The
look like
buffer looking.
propellers. Yeah, the
Yeah.
buffer
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And like, Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom. Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I gotta, and he's like, let loose because I can't stop, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So like I learned early on, like what it was like, hard work and all that sort of shit. And then it's funny because I'm an old dude. I'm taking early Social Security. And so I was looking at like when I first started kicking into it, and I started kicking in 1979, like when I was 15, and that's when I started working for my father.
Yeah.
So by the time by the time I hit writing school at 29, 30, I'd had a career, a full career,
Right.
the construction business. And I was sick of it. I didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I knew, I mean, I could have, like a lot of my prep school friends, I could have just, this is what you're supposed to do. And this, if you want to like
Mhm.
have the country club and you want to do all that stuff and have
Then
the big bank
this is the
account, and
path. This is
this
the
is
path.
this is the path. And in fact, I did have that after I got my first marriage. I did have that for like a few years, but I hated it. And
Right.
and and to be honest, my first wife, who's my good friend now, the boy's mother, my two sons' mother, she was supportive, very supportive, because she's an artist, and she was really supportive of it. And meanwhile, while people are like, "Meg, are you crazy? Look what he's doing to you," like you're basically going to be living in poverty. And
Yeah.
indeed, we did. Why all not real poverty, but we were poor while I was going through writing school
Oh
because
yeah.
it was full time, and we lived on loans,
Yeah.
and then something miraculous happened about 9 months after I got out. I
Oh
got out in
yeah.
January, and then in October, I had in between that time, I had finished my very first novel, which was called As Catch Can, and this is it. Terrible cover, but
Oh man. But that
uh,
was, what year was that? Because back then,
99.
oh yeah, because I edited a book back then that had a cover very similar,
Did you
and
really? Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
wish you'd
wasn't
edited it.
exactly like that, but it
Right.
was yeah. Anyway, that's yeah,
Well,
and I just discovered a parallel of our lives because my grandfather he was a missionary pastor, but he did a lot of construction on the side and was building a church. And one of my
right.
first memories of working was 4 years old on the top of scaffolding. I've got a picture of me standing next to my grandfather on top of scaffolding when I was 4 years old, back
That's
before
awesome.
they cared about kids' safety and labor laws. You
Not at
know,
all.
I mean,
Not at all. Not at all. Yep. Kid, give me
that's
that.
funny.
Yeah. Give me the
Yeah,
sawzall. It weighs more than you do,
yeah,
but you're like
exactly.
psyched.
Carry
It's
that
like,
up. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. You're carrying anything you can. I was carrying cinder blocks, anything I could, man.
sure,
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
but
Remember,
yeah,
remember, you'd have to carry him like one in each hand just to show how tough
yeah,
you
just
are.
to show how tough you were. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Heavyweights even. Yep, sure. And now that, of
yeah.
course, now my back is all full of arthritis. But
I mean,
um, but
that's what we
anyway,
get.
yep.
So, okay,
So
so you graduate writing school. Guess you
yep,
did okay.
yep. I
In
guess.
writing school,
Yeah,
lived on loans. Your book
yep.
gets accepted. Dream deal for an author, right?
Yeah,
Dream
250
deal.
grand. 250
250
grand for
grand
two books.
advance for two books.
Delacorte Press. Yes.
Yeah. And so then what happened?
I
Because
proceed. I proceed because I'm still young. I'm only 30, right? 32. I think at
yeah,
that time I'm 32, right? 33 maybe. 30. Anyway.
young
Uh
30s. Yeah.
yeah. I proceed because I'm only 140 miles from New York City. I proceed to party like a rock star. And in
Hmm.
fact, I get into a band playing drums with my then editor. And it's every weekend at the Gramercy Park Hotel during its heyday. And we're having parties in the room and like it's just like the dream. Like if it were the 50s, it would have been like Truman Capote would have been there, right?
Right, right.
And like but agents and other authors and editors are there and like it's just debauchery and like we're playing gigs and we're doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, I should be home writing another book, of course, and
Right,
marketing
right.
my book and out doing book signings and all this shit. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm hooking up because of course, my wife and I are splitting up. Of course, that's
Right.
because that's another inevitable thing. And I start hooking up with my marketing person, this woman. I'll just call her Vicky, and
Yeah.
I automatically piss off one of the biggest booksellers in New York City, who shall go um, unnamed. I call him Auto Parts. I don't know, but
Ah,
that
yeah,
might
yeah.
give you an idea.
Gotcha.
Because he was into her, and he was a notorious philanderer, and
Right.
uh, um, and I got her. So like ever since then, he's like never really spoken to me, but it was a great time. I spent a ton of money. I spent everything, and guess what?
Didn't earn.
No one bought the book. So,
Yeah. Well, odd because you didn't market it and you were
right,
busy partying at the Gram.
right
And
at the Gram.
meanwhile, your book's going nowhere because nobody's marketing it, right?
Yeah, yeah, because
Oh,
me and the main marketing person are like too busy, you know,
Yeah.
um, swapping spit, and
Yeah.
and meanwhile, but you know what? I don't regret a minute of it. It was so much fun. And, you're like the toast of the town for a little while. And it's sort of
Hmm.
reflected in the book. It's completely reflected in that experience in the book. The book is, and in fact, the book is much more autobiographical than for which I've given it credit. And
Right.
um like everything, like I could do this without, you know, Jimmy Vaines was my Jimmy Vaines is based on my then agent, uh, Jimmy Vines. The editor was Jacob Hoy, and I think I call him Jake in the book. And I describe them exactly as they are, whatever. Jimmy's out of the business.
Mhm.
He's a magician now. And Jake, I think Jake's a freelance editor or something like that. Anyway,
Mm.
um, but uh, but we that's why I'm able to describe and to dramatize those dinners and things like that with the agent and the editor, with some accuracy, because it really happened. Not to that extent, of course, I fictionalize it, but
Right.
um and then, like I said, like I had divorced the first wife, and I divorced, and then I ended up with this second wife, who is Catherine in the book. And pretty much everything that is described in the book happens, aside from the fact that I have never gone to the nut house,
Ah,
but
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
um so anyway, it was the things that happened with my second wife. And my second wife actually divorced me when things were going poorly, after the big success with Delacorte,
Right. Right.
because she got into a marriage she didn't think. So she hung in there for 36 months and then ditched me, right?
Right. Exactly.
And
Because when
what does
things go
she
downhill,
right?
yeah.
So what does she do? She starts dating another writer
Oh,
who's a journalist.
yes.
And the only thing, you couldn't script it this way. The only thing I could think of was like, how can this guy, who I knew damn well he wanted to be a novelist, because I had friends
Right.
who were friends with him. And I'm like, how can he be sleeping with her with copies of my books, like, on
On
the
his shelf.
shelves? Like, I just wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to do it, right? And so he's the basis for Martin Rojak. And but
Gotcha.
Rojak, I got, if you've ever read Norma Mailer's um American what is it? An American murder, or an American,
Oh, oh
what is it?
gosh.
An American
I can't remember the name of the book, but it's oh, I should just look it up real quick.
an American Norma Mailer. Let's see. What's Norma Mailer's book? An American Dream? An Amer is it American Dream? What is it? An American Dream.
An American
Oh,
Dream.
The American Dream. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I
Uh,
see it. Yeah.
that book starts off, or I think it starts off this way. If I remember correctly, it's about a politician and he gets involved in a murder. And so I was reading that at the time, and I kind of, like, borrowed a little bit of that. And Rojak is based on a character in that book.
Oh,
Um,
excellent.
so uh, so that's what came out. But I wrote like two books based on and I did get back with the second wife when things started going great again.
Right.
When I get the second big deal with Thomas and Mercer, when I'm getting the awards, when I'm being written up in the New York Times and all this, then she wants back in,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and um, and sure enough, she ditched me again, like
Oh, oh,
like 5 years later. And the only difference between this one, though, and the book they remarry,
right.
and in reality, I didn't she wanted to, and I said no.
Yeah.
Because I knew what was how it was going to
A
end.
part of you
Bec-
knew what was happening. Part
yeah,
of you knew how it was going to end,
as much
you
as I
know?
hated to admit it, I knew that it was going to end poorly, and
Yeah.
poorly it did, and she won't speak to me to this day.
Mm. Well, yeah, it's kind of so we've talked about this before because this writer's life is kind of a roller coaster at times.
It is.
So you have to have someone, if someone's going to stick with you for the long term, they have to understand that it's a roller coaster.
Right.
So I think that it was really interesting how that was reflected in the book was her coming back when things were good. And I was, in my head, because I, of course, I've had my own experiences. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, this is going to end pretty poorly. She's in for the money, in not really in for the not in for the Vince, but well, I mean, not Vince in the book, but you know what I mean? Not
Right.
in for the store, not in for the money,
Yeah.
for the,
Yeah.
relationship, but in for the success and the money.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, which, that always goes up and down. We've talked about that. So,
Yep. Yep.
um, okay, let's talk about some of your awards because, hey, why not? We'll just
Hey.
throw that in because you're nominated for a thriller award this year, right?
Yes, my
For
book,
Terminal Moonlight, right?
Terminal Moonlight.
Yeah, Terminal Moonlight nominated for a thriller award. You won
Yep.
the thriller award with
For Moonlight
what?
Sonata.
Moonlight Sonata. That's right. That's right. Okay. So, and you've got some other awards back there too.
Yes, I got
Hmm.
the PWA Seamus Award
For the
also for
remains.
Moonlight Sonata, or not
Oh, for
Moonlight Sonata,
Moonlight Sonata.
also for Moonlight Weeps.
Oh, for Moonlight Weeps. Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, yes, I won the thriller for Moonlight Weeps. I always confuse the two. Um,
Uh,
so that was a huge year, right? And
yeah.
because like one of my heroes, Jim Crumley, won the Seamus, I believe.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and that one up there, that's for the remains. In September of 13, I want to say. Um,
Yeah.
it sold like 100,000 copies in like a month, and I outsold the whole stable of Thomas and Mercer.
Oh, wow.
And so it ended up selling like 200,000 copies or something like that. And soon after that, like there was a changing of the guard, which always happens at Thomas and Mercer, and a brand new
Hmm.
editor in chief, brand new this, brand new marketing, brand new whatever. And they were like, well, we'll see you later.
You're
Like,
right.
who gets rid of an author that's sold that well, right?
Right.
But the good thing is I got my rights back, and so it's continued. Like it, that one, like if I run it through a book bub, it like never gets rejected for a book bub because it's got like 8,000 reviews,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and so like it twice a year it makes me good money, really good money. So
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
whatever.
Well, which is interesting because of course you were traditionally published to start with,
Yep.
Delacour, Thomas and Mercer, all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. You went with a bunch of small presses too,
Yep.
and then you started doing indie stuff. That was about 2015
About
ish.
that, I think I mean I put up like a few short stories, stuff like that, and I didn't really pay attention to it until I was in Florence on one of my little self writing retreats for a month, and I got the idea for Chase Baker, an action adventure series, um, which I really wanted to do. I really wanted to write like a kind of modern day Indiana Jones kind of thing, right? And so I came up with Chase Baker, and I called it. And I'm fascinated with the Shroud of Turin, so I came up with that, and not knowing how to do anything, and so I had professionals do the editing and covers and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't think at that time I'm 80%, probably
Traditional.
90% traditional, and 10% to 15% um, indie. But it was my first novel, and it was going to be a series. And so I remember my agent at the time. He's like, "You're not going to try for a traditional deal?" And I said, "No, I want to try this on my own, and I want to keep it, you
Hmm.
know." And I didn't think it would do much, but I'll tell you, man, that book is outsells The Remains.
Oh yeah.
It's my perennial bestseller, and I think I think we're up to it's made me easily six figures, right? And um, and then like the books that follow do really well. It's kind of like, like I'm 20 books into it now, and times have changed a little bit. Um, but I'm gonna try to write at least one Chase Baker a year, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, when you have a series that long, long running series that long, I mean, you never know
Right,
how that's going to play out,
right,
television, all that kind of stuff too, but
right.
also just readers get into that series, they go back and reread the first ones and they get
Yeah,
into it with a new one. People enter the series in different spaces, and
yeah,
it's a great character. I mean, it's a really well done character.
yeah.
So,
It's
um,
and then I ended up writing all these, like I created like four different PI series, and like another kind of CIA kind of series, and uh a Sky Marshal series, and like I'm like, this is too much fun, and like I'm starting to get
mhm,
more and more prolific, and I'm like, it's saddest, like I lust publishing, right?
right,
And
exactly.
and I could put out as much as I want, whenever I wanted, however I wanted. You could mix genres. You could write stuff at lengths that no traditional publisher would accept. You just had so much more freedom and control, right? And I'm all about that. And I'm like, so now I'm like, what? I think I'm like 90% indie and 10% traditional. And I think the only reason I'm 10% traditional is because I just signed with you guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I was really more of a mix when I first started out. It was probably sometimes 60/40, sometimes 70
Right,
30, but it was
right,
all kind of leaning towards the traditional edge because that was the way,
right. That was the
supposedly.
way.
But the problem is I kept making more money on my indie titles, kind of like,
Right,
you did with Chase Baker, and then I didn't have to
right,
wait. Like I had one novel that was supposed to be with a publisher. There was going to be a series, all this other stuff, but they never did anything with it. So I just
right,
got the rights back, and I was like, well, I'm going to do this myself. I'm not waiting. And
right,
so, because I'd waited like a year and a half. I'm like, start the series. I've got other books in the series, but you have to publish the first one.
right,
And it just didn't go anywhere. So I just got the rights back and published it myself for this kind of the same reasons as,
right,
it's a different era. But I like how you talked about having fun because that's one of the number one things. Like it's part of the reason I don't understand people that draft with AI in a lot of ways
right,
because I like drafting stories. It's fun. I
right,
don't just, I mean, I'm like you, I lust for publication. I want to get it published. I want to get it out there, right?
right.
But
Yeah,
the writing and the discovering of the story is some of the funnest part of the whole thing,
right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a writer friend of mine she's kind of starting out. She's young and whatever, and she's always, hitting me up with questions and stuff like this. And she's like, "What are you working on now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm kind of editing something, but I'm also working on a new Moonlight, Killer Moonlight." And I said, I meant for it to be a short story, but it's ballooned into a novel. And
Hmm.
this is where I'm at. I have no idea how it's going to end, and I won't have any idea how it's going to end until I write the ending. And I said, it's just like reading a book. Like, I don't want to know the ending until I read it.
Yeah. I don't want to know all the details necessarily
Yeah,
until I write it and read it.
yeah.
I mean, I plan things out, I plot things out to only to a certain extent though. And then the rest of it is pretty loosey. And
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear
I
what you're
got mad
saying.
at
Yeah,
myself, so mad at myself this morning because I finally finished my story for our Cars book blast that we're gonna do.
yeah, yeah.
And in the ending line, I was like, shoot, I just left that open for a sequel, and now I want to write more about that character. And I don't have time to write more about that character because I got six other things
I
going
know.
on. So I'm like,
It's
I wrote it in a notebook and it's underlined like three times, like
right, right,
new Jonah Cross series. Got all the
right,
characteristics of the guy, the whole deal. I'm like, oh, why did
right.
I? But I mean, I think that's just kind of the way it goes. Like we
Yeah,
come up with an idea and we're like, oh, well, yeah, sure. Why not? Let me write
yeah.
20 more books in that series or
Right.
whatever.
And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, like Troy and I can write novels in a month, especially if it's a series novel. Like I wrote Term of the Moonlight. I bet you it took 4 weeks, maybe a few days less, and boom, it's up
Yeah.
for the Thriller Award. You know,
Yeah.
so you're doing something right. Um,
Right. Well, and part of that's the prolific side of just being disciplined to write every day.
yeah, that's all.
Write a few hours a day,
Yeah,
and then the other business stuff. Yeah, we got to take care of that. I got such a list
yeah,
this afternoon; it's insane.
yeah.
But especially running a publisher now and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what I mean. Aside from that, like it's the most important thing for me is that writing time every single day. So do you have a schedule? Do you schedule yourself in the morning, or do you just kind
Yeah.
of go, as
I do
soon
it
as I
just
wake
like
up, I'm going to write?
I do it just like you do it. I wake up and I do all my creative stuff in the morning. Of course, this week is screwed up because of the time change, and
Oh, yeah,
so I'm like, and I keep waking up at 5. Like, okay, get my body says get out of bed, but it's dark and shit, and I'm like, well,
yeah,
I'm gonna force myself to go back to sleep till like 7, and then make the coffee and be at my computer by 7:30.
yeah,
But this week it's been like an hour off, whatever.
yeah,
But I do all the creative stuff in the morning, and then maybe I'll do a writing sprint in the afternoon. But then I have to, just like you, I have to take care of business in the
yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah, because there is the business side of being a writer, and that's obviously a part of your indie career and a part of signing with Alibi and being a part of Alibi
Yep.
is the business side of things. So do you generally, when you're deciding whether something's going to go traditional or not, is that generally a business decision, probably more than anything else? Like you want to
No,
give
it's
control to somebody else, and
nope, it's not because I'll tell you why. If it were a business decision, strictly a business decision, I would never even consider selling a book with a traditional publisher ever again. Um, I do it for bragging rights. Simple as
hmm
that. Um, you know, you don't sell like your apartment or your apartment building in New York City. You hang on to it, and then you
right,
rent apartments to people, and you just
right,
it continues to make money for you every year, even if that money is humble or something.
right.
You don't sell it ever. It's a mistake to sell it. In fact, in my experiences with all my publishers, ended up. Have you ever seen the Heartbreak Kid
Yeah,
from '72? Um, and I forget the people who were in it, but the hot blonde girl, and whatever. Anyway, but he marries this woman, and he's really into her right off the bat, really into her. And then on the drive, and like you go through that, like that like you're really happy for like a couple of weeks. You agreed to do this, you got married, you had the party, and everybody's congratulating you and all this sort of stuff, and you're bragging on social media. And then he drives her down to Florida, down to like Miami Beach. And as he's driving her and they're stopping to sleep for the night, he starts realizing how much he not only hates her, but how much he's disgusted with her. So when he gets down, when he by the time he gets by the time like there's one scene they're in Virginia and she's still in bed and she's like licking her lips and like farting and whatever, and he's like all dressed and just staring at her. And
yeah,
by the time they get to Miami Beach, he sees the hot blonde on the beach, and he falls in love with her, and he's like, I'm going after her, and he has to break up with his new wife. So, and like that kind of like is a metaphor for how my relationship has been with publishers over the past 10 years. Like I'm over the moon at first, but then I'm like, I want my fucking rights back because you're
yeah.
not doing, you disgust me. You're terrible and bad. Like you're not doing what you're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. I assure you that will not happen with us though, because
Well, I think, and really, I think honestly,
you guys are different.
the reason I want to do things differently with Alibi, the whole entire reason is exactly what you just talked about. is every time it's like, oh, this is going to be a great deal. This is going to be amazing. This publisher
Right.
is going to do great things for me.
Right.
And they never do. Like it's
Never.
always if your book is successful, it's usually because of the work that you did, not the
Right.
work that they did,
Right.
except for those rare occasions when their marketing department goes, oh, we really like this book.
Yep.
Let's really put some time and effort and money behind it.
Right.
And so that's why, I feel like with Alibi, the reason we're going slow and only taking a few titles and all that kind of stuff is like, I will not take on a book that I can't market
I think
and
that
make
is a brilliant
successful.
idea.
Because, I mean, otherwise, it's just like every other publisher. And for those of you that are listening to this who've never been through this hamster wheel of publishing, it's exactly the way Vince describes it. You start out in New York, you have the party, you're all happy, you're excited, and by the time you're done, by the time you reach your destination in Florida, you're like, man, I don't think so.
I want out.
This is this is
Yeah.
not it. And when
I
when
want a
indie
divorce.
publishing came along, I mean, that was our salvation, really.
It
Um,
was.
and even as rough as it is sometimes, and as rough as the market is right now, it's still our savior compared to
Yeah.
publishing, compared to
Yeah.
the publishing market. You
Yeah.
know,
I think if indie publishing hadn't come out, and I hadn't embraced it when I finally did just in time,
hmm
um, I would be a teacher right now or something like that. Or I would be
yeah,
back in the construction business. I would still be writing.
but
Um,
you'd be doing it on the side.
but I'd be doing it on the
Yeah,
side. Yeah, no question. Because the money would not be there.
yeah. The money wouldn't be there if you're trying to do a publisher. I mean, I know so many people that are like, they're writing on the side and they still have a full-time job and they're picked up by traditional presses and they have
Hmm.
great covers and they have great everything except for not great marketing from and support from their publisher.
Right.
And I mean, it's just I'm like, this is a great book, but it's going to go nowhere, unfortunately.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
fortunately, as an indie, you don't have to have that many fans to just make some decent money.
No, you don't at
So
all. Just a fraction, in fact.
a fraction
Um,
of what they're looking for.
and people might be like, "Wow, Vince, how did you sell all those copies?" You know, and it- the reason is simple. They made Thomas and Mercer made the marketing department made a concerted effort to get that to the overall number one spot. They made a
hmm
concerted effort. They had a plan, and they carried that plan out perfectly. And it
hmm
proved to me, and we discussed it. I'm like, okay, so you guys can make a book a number one bestseller if you want to, and if
If
you
you
don't
want to,
want to,
it's not going
then
to be a number one
it's
bestseller.
gonna languish, right? So I was like,
Right.
okay, that's the game. Okay,
Yeah. I mean, because I just wrote an article about this on for Substack, and it'll be out, I think, either later today or tomorrow. Um, but it's basically like what has happened with publishers, they commodified books like tap water. Like
right,
you can get them anywhere from any different retailer, they're all the same. So
yep,
the only way for it to stand out is for you to put, like you're saying, a huge concerted marketing effort behind it
right,
to bring it to market and sell a whole bunch of copies. But really, the reality as an indie is all I need to do is offer something unique and offer it to my readers directly and in kind of a micro community instead of trying to
right,
hit every eyeball out there. I'm just trying to hit
right,
those eyeballs that are my audience.
right,
And I can make a living that way and it works.
yep,
And it's way less trouble than trying to get a million different people to read my book one time,
right,
you know?
right. And I mean, is it glamorous? Do you get the the rights to brag on social media and all that? Not necessarily, but even that's kind of changing,
hmm
because it's such an accepted way to publish now that it's almost like
hmm
you're an absolute fool if you don't have an independent list. I mean, you have to be
Yeah.
out of your mind, you know.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know anybody who doesn't. And actually, I'm seeing like younger writers. Like again, I'll mention this young lady who I see now and then. She doesn't even consider going
Mm-mm.
traditional. She's like, why would I don't get it?
Yeah.
Why do that? Like I like when and
Well,
she's
yeah,
good.
I have a client right now who wants an agent badly. And I'm like, why? And I'm looking at her book and I'm like, the indie potential for this is huge because I could control every aspect of this book.
Yeah.
And I could make this book not famous, not world famous, but I'm going to make you some money on this
Right.
book. But if you
Right.
want an agent, they're going to take a percentage of your money from this book. And they're probably
Right.
not going to do that much to help the bottom line in the overall sales,
Right.
you
I
know?
mean, theoretically, I mean, I have an agent. I work with agents still.
Hmm.
Um, and in fact, I even work with another. I mean, I'm signed with one, and I have another I work with sort of unofficially. I've known him for 25 years, and like he called me or didn't call me, but he emailed me. He's like, "Oh, um, like a day after the finalists were announced for the Thriller Award, he said, I got a call from a Hollywood producer who's looking for this kind of stuff. Um, so he's like, do you mind if I, you know, send me a copy
Shop
of
it.
it or whatever? So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Of course. We've done that a few times.
Hmm.
Um, and anybody who's doing that, don't expect anything to happen overnight. Like
Oh,
sometimes it
no.
could take 8 years, 10
Well, yeah.
years.
We talk
Yeah,
about Hugh Howey, how, like there were some friends when he was, back when it was K boards and all of us indie authors were hanging around. And I
right,
remember when Ridley Scott picked up the first option for Wool,
right,
right, which became Silo on
right.
Apple TV,
Yep,
12 years after Ridley Scott first optioned
yep,
the screenplay.
yep.
Option it for the screenplay. I mean, we all were like, "Hey, congratulations, Ridley Scott! That's going to be made into a show." A
Yeah.
decade later, and it's not that.
Yeah,
I mean, Hugh has not done terrible for himself. He's made a really great
right.
living. But I mean, back in the day, he was just one of us sloughing around, trying to figure out this indie publishing thing
Yep,
and make some money at it. And I mean, he's doing extremely well now, but
yep.
like it took forever for that to be picked up,
Yep.
forever.
Yep.
You know.
And I think at this point, like the only thing I haven't accomplished is to actually have a movie produced or a Netflix series or something like that. And it's becoming a little bit frustrating, I will admit. But I do
Hmm.
think that our frustrations as writers are going to dissipate year by year by year, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more because we are going to suddenly start making movies ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And sorry, folks, but we're going to be using AI as part of it. And,
Well, but
the process is becoming streamlined and a lot less expensive. And we'll be
the
able to start handling it on our own.
the big thing with AI is that like I don't want to necessarily take anybody's job, but no one's lined up to make my movie.
That's right.
There's not a bunch of stars that are like reading the script for it saying, I want to make that movie. I'm not
Right.
taking away any job or anything from anybody in Hollywood.
Right.
They're only making, you know, between 600 and 1,000 movies a year
Right.
overall until you start counting indie filmmakers and stuff like that. So like our odds of getting one of our books picked up by Hollywood are extremely remote.
Oh,
The odds of
extremely.
me being
Yeah.
able to create or to work with a director and a producer and groups that are working with AI video and create an AI video is
Right.
pretty high. I mean, I
Right.
understand some of the problems with it. I get it, but I also understand the opportunity there that otherwise, us indie authors just don't have that opportunity very often at all. And the
Right.
reason is Hollywood's remaking sequels over and over. We're remaking The Running Man again. Well, that's
Right.
great, but
Yeah. Because it's a sure
it's
thing.
not new. It's a
Right.
sure thing. It's a bet. It's a sure
Right.
bet. Get the
Right.
right stars, get the right movie, and it's a sure thing seller.
Yeah.
Where anything that they put of you and I's up there is a gamble.
Yep.
And it might be a gamble that pays off. But
Yep.
Jack Reacher. But it might not. So,
Yep. It
yeah.
was, I saw, you probably caught this. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were on Rogan about a month ago, month and a half ago. And they, s- is, they're great actors. They're great writers. Um, they're smart, but it amazed me at how much they talked about their business and how about they go about their business, their movie business, their film business.
Hmm.
And they discussed, like how you go about getting projects that are going to work, that aren't going to work. All too often, they read scripts that they love, but they know it isn't going to work. They
Hmm.
talk, they talk about like how they get into a shoot a month into it, and they're like, that dreadful feeling comes over them. They're like, they admit to
Yeah.
themselves, this is never going to work. It's never going to
Yeah.
sell,
Like
but
when we
we
get
still have
halfway
to.
through a draft,
Yeah, like,
we're
ah,
like,
shit.
oh shit,
Yep,
you
yep.
know?
And
Yeah.
and but I found that fascinating because here are these two guys that like are businessmen. They are as
Hmm.
much businessmen as they are artists, if not more, to be
Hmm.
honest. And they have to make some serious decisions,
Yeah.
and they have to please the studios. They have to make a profit. And if they don't, they're in trouble. And
Right.
it's kind of like what my father used to say in construction business, in the construction business. He used to say, all it takes for you to go bankrupt is one bad job. One
Yep.
client, one job that goes sour, or one client that refuses to pay. That's
Yep.
all it takes. And it's kind of similar with the movie industry. You can lose
Yeah.
your shirt,
Oh yeah.
absolutely lose your
Publishing
shirt.
too. Publishing
Yeah,
too. It's one of the reasons we've said with Alibi, like the only way to combat that as a publisher is to just pick up tons and tons and tons of titles.
yeah,
And you're
yeah.
playing the odds of that
Yes,
one of them is going to hit, right?
yep,
One of them is going to be the remains,
right,
right? And but if then you have a whole bunch of losers, and you
yep.
can't put money behind them. You
Can't.
can't
Yeah,
because you keep putting money, you keep throwing good money after bad, and it doesn't sell. Well, you're skunked. You're done.
right,
It's easy to go bankrupt. It's the same thing as authors. Like we have to make tough decisions about how we sell our work, what
right,
we sell our work for, how that works, because
right.
one bad year and you can be back in the construction industry again,
Let me
being
ask
a
you a
mason
question.
somewhere. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How many times have you canceled your one of your own series? You've had to like reject yourself, and
Oh,
like Troy, this series isn't working for you anymore. We're gonna have to
oh
we're gonna
yeah.
have to stop it.
One I was writing with a co-writer. I stopped his part. I kicked him out of the series about book 10.
Right.
And then at book 16, I ended the series so I can restart it. So I'm actually revamping the covers and stuff of that series right now so I
Yeah.
can promote it and restart it with a different protagonist.
Right.
And
Which
the
is also
reason was
something you can do.
the
That's great.
protagonist was not working.
Right.
I mean, it just wasn't working. The series was not working. It did
Yep.
not have a big enough following. It did not go far enough. And I
Yep.
had to kill it. And I
Yeah.
mean, a part of me, by the time I killed it, I wanted to kill it.
Right.
Right. But another part of me was like, I'm 16 books into this thing. Like, I got an investment. I
Yeah.
want to
You've
make
got
my
a
money back.
serious
You know what I
investment.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, it's hard because you as an author have to be hard on yourself. Like, yeah,
Yep.
the gatekeepers of publishers don't reject you, but
Right.
you have to reject your own stuff sometimes and say, hey, man,
Yeah.
this is not working. It's not gonna work. You're
Yep.
not selling books in this series.
Yep.
So what are you gonna do about it? My friend and I wrote a book about Star Trek, and we had to just back off a lot of the marketing for it. It's
Yep.
just not selling the way we
Yep.
wanted it to.
Yep.
There's all kinds of experiences like that that I've had. I'm sure that you've had too, and that like we just have to
Yeah.
go. Okay, well, if that series isn't selling, I guess I have to, switch to Steve Jobs for a while or whatever. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Sure.
Like,
And it
um,
amazes me, um, the writers I know, and they're usually older, who openly say, like, no, I've never made any money from my books. I've always had to do something else. And I'm like, I don't get that. It doesn't compute with me. I'm like, I want my books to make money for me. And
mhm,
that represents a success for me, and also it's pragmatic because it pays your bills. Because I don't want to do anything else. I want to
well,
just
right.
always write, and I'm never going to quit. But for people to say like, "Oh no, I've never relied on book sales, or I've never made money from my books. I have another income or something like that." Like, okay, um, okay, if that's where you're at,
Hmm.
I just that doesn't kind of thing doesn't compute with me. Thus, me having a rocky relationship with certain publishers along the way, traditional publishers.
Right. Right. And well, I think a part of it too is that desire of like, I want to write. This is the only thing that I want to do. So I have to make it pay. And
Right.
also, I tell people all the time, they're like, I don't care if I make money on my books, but I just want lots of people to read it.
Right.
Like, you know how lots of people read your books, so they buy them. That's
Right.
how they that's
Right.
how they end
Then
up
give them
reading it.
out. Then give them away for
And
free. You know, just
if you
put it
give
up
them
there for
away for
free.
free, not a lot of those books that are freebies on Kindle, nobody ever reads them. I mean, they
Right.
just got it for
Oh, they
free. They
just
put it on their Kindle because it was free,
right.
and they never even read it. I'm like,
Right.
you have to have it. There has to be a system behind that if you're going to give away your books, because they're
Right.
not actually going to get anyway. That's a
Right.
whole other topic. But you know what I mean? Like you and I have both been through this industry long enough that we know that
Right.
hey, books got to pay the bills. You
Right.
know, they got to sell. You got to
Right.
do the things you have to do to make them sell. You know, the
Yep.
business decision. So you have to get your marketing department wholeheartedly behind
Right.
the title.
Right. And it's
So.
funny because a lady friend of mine, she said, recently we're having a discussion, and she was picking my brain about the writer's life and all this sort of stuff, and she said, "You don't have a 401k, do you?" Because I must have mentioned that, whatever. And my response was, my book business is my 401k, and I try to make sure that every book does at least 10% a year. That 10% could be $50 per
Right.
year. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I have 200 products out there, and I'm
Right.
putting out stuff. I have like a backlog of about 30 books right now and stories, and I'm just going to keep building it and building it and building it. And like I said, you don't sell that apartment building in New York City. You just keep,
You just keep letting those things
you
rent out,
maintain it.
make you money. Yeah.
Yep. You maintain it when you need to, things like that. That is by far, I think, the most practical and the best publishing model. I mean, you really,
Hmm.
if I want to publish a book traditionally, maybe once a year or once every 2 years, whatever, then I'll do that just like I said, for gratification purposes only,
Hmm.
and to make some money, like hopefully,
Yeah. Well,
but
and
the
if
nuts
you,
and bolts is the indie
yeah, the
world.
nuts and bolts, your floor, your money that you're making all the time is your indie titles.
Right.
It's a bonus if you get a book with a publisher and it turns out to be the remains. And you
Yes.
sell thousands of copies, but that's the reason it's an outlier is because it's an outlier. It's not
Right.
the norm. If
It's
that
not.
was the norm for everybody getting traditional deals, we'd all be lined up like a bunch of lemmings at the door,
Right.
knocking it down, trying to get in. But the
Right.
majority of
Right.
people trying to get into trad publishers right now, I feel like, are people that are new and haven't
Oh,
learned their
sure.
lesson yet,
Right.
or that are, like going with a small press because they want to learn about
Right.
publishing, learn how to do the work,
Right.
and
And
then do it from there. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
don't know there's not. And strange things can happen because I mean, I assume, we're getting close to the end of our
Yes.
conversation, but we'll go back to the beginning. This book, like I said, it hardly sold anything, right? So then I got the rights back and I revamped it. I get rid of that title as Catch Can. I started calling it The Innocent, and I went through the manuscript again, got rid of all the mistakes that a traditional editor had made.
Yeah.
And a small press published it, Stonehouse at the time, which I think you published with too.
Yeah.
And that book sold 100,000 copies in a month, which led to the big deal with Thomas and Mercer.
Thomas and Mercer. Yeah.
But you would think like once a book doesn't do well, it's dead. No, it's not, folks.
No,
You can have a book
it's
come back
not.
10 years later and just kill it.
Right, exactly. Different time, different place, different cover, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. I mean, and really, honestly, the reason I'm revamping that one series is a 100% business decision.
Yes.
That series can come back and make me money if it's handled properly. Wasn't
Yeah,
handled properly before. Now's an opportunity to handle it properly this time,
that's
you
right.
know? But
And
yeah.
it'll do well for
Anyway,
you.
well, thanks, Vince, as usual, for all your insights and your time.
Thank you, Troy.
We'll put the links in below this description for pre-ordering. The pre-order will be available soon for Quietly into the Night. I
Yep.
have I've heard a rumor that somebody is going to do the audio for that.
Oh no, really?
That the audio for that is going to be done maybe by a narrator some of you may know and recognize. So
He's got a
um,
terrific voice.
there's a
Very
rumor that
talented.
that's happening. And I've heard discussions inside of the publisher about a German translation, but I'm not sure. I don't want to tell you that for sure, but
All right. Well, that's all good
I've
news.
been just in board meetings with some people. I don't know if there's any decision makers in there or not, but there might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nick Sheeson.
yeah. That's hilarious.
It'll
Anyway,
be like
thanks,
Nick
Vince.
Sheeson. You, Nick Sheeson. You know, because all the swears are in English.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm looking
Exactly.
forward to this book. It's going to be great. Wait till you guys see the cover, and also, I will be putting this recording up on my Substack page for
Yeah.
everyone to enjoy.
Yep, we'll have this out in just a short period of time. We'll have it ready for you guys. And yeah, I can't wait for this book and to see what happens. Maybe we'll come on and we'll do another video that'll be just a cover reveal. We'll
Yeah,
have
that would be awesome.
me, you, and the boss, and we'll come
And the
and talk
boss.
about that and reveal your cover. Kind of slowly reveal it to the
All right.
people.
Sounds
But
good.
anyway, all right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.
As always.
All right.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody. I appreciate it.